And welcome back to Jones & Company. I'm your host, Brian Jones. And today we're here with Antonius Roberts. Welcome back. Thank you for joining us.
It's good to be back.
Awesome. And so we were starting to talk about some of the major, significant Bahamian artists that are actually making waves on the global stage, right? Art is not dead in this country.
Art is not dead, but it needs to be celebrated a little bit more.
Yes.
I think it is incumbent upon all of us to just take a deep and hard look at ourselves and to recognize and celebrate the creatives among us. And be open and honest enough to say that over the years, we as a people have done well in terms of being able to survive.
Yes.
In this little place called the Bahamas, and we look at the wealth of talent, and I've just called the names of a lot of young visual artists who are making waves outside the Bahamas, but there are so many of them who are making waves on the inside as well. And I'm one of those who firmly believe that one should not have to leave one's home to do well.
Yes, we shouldn't. You really shouldn't.
We shouldn't, all right? Particularly not from the Bahamas, when the world is here.
That's right. And so the more we recognize each other, the more we're going to ascribe value to what we're doing.
We have to, right?
Right.
Okay.
And that's what's evolving.
So the reality is, when I look at somebody like her, when I look at somebody at somebody like Alan Wallace, for God's sake, and most people in the creative community know that listen, I've known Alan from this. Alan came through the FINCO summer art program. He never went off to school to study, but he is considered one, as far as I'm concerned, he's one of the most talented human beings on earth.
As well.
And art is survival for him. Okay, art is his religion. All right. I mean, he sweats creativity. If he sweats, and if he could make something out of that sweat, he'll make a picture out of that sweat. That's Alan Wallace. I mean, I'm proud of an Alan Wallace because I know where he came from. But I mean, Alan Wallace was shaped, and he's able to carve out a wonderful career for himself in the Bahamas.
That's right. And he does it with passion.
Or we talk about somebody like Jamal Roll. I guess I have to say Ambassador Jamal Roll now. All right, Jamal Roll also came through our FINCO summer program, and Jamal Roll carved out a niche for himself to cartoon, and then he's now the celebrity artist.
That's right.
And so we need to celebrate that.
We really do.
We need to celebrate each of these guys.
Yeah, I mean, it's invaluable. We're talking about sustainability of artists, right, and their work. You know something, right? We look at this stark contrast when it comes to technology. The evolution of technology is making things faster, cheaper, and it's actually taking a lot of jobs, right? And when it comes to automation, AI, right? It's thinking for us, machine learning doing for us, right? Self-executing computers, right? You got smart contracts on the blockchain automating everything, right? Based on pure logic. But I may assert that AI and machine learning can't replace human creativity, right? That is something that cannot be taught to computers, right? There is something that is innately human about artistic expression, right? It takes some reflection, and then you apply that to your own version of reality, right or wrong.
You're absolutely right. I mean, can you program an automated computer or artificial intelligence something to cook like Simeon Hall Jr.? No.
You just can't do it.
You just can't do it. Not Simeon Hall.
No.
Not Simeon Hall Jr. I know. I mean, he's not just a chef. He is a master artist as far as I'm concerned. But you have
That's
we have to celebrate Simeon Hall, right?
Right.
But Simeon Hall and the artists names that I've mentioned, they don't live in silos. They understand the power of technology, and they understand the value in actually trying to figure out how to marry creativity and technology.
Yes, yes. They look at the art and the
Okay,
science
and so
of
when
it,
we
right?
talk about art and science, you got to
Yes.
talk about a Tavares Straughn,
Right.
because he has mastered, all right, talking about art and
What
science.
has he done that's a little different? Because I think it's worth
Well,
highlighting.
this is an MIT graduate, all
Okay,
right,
exactly.
and from he was a student at the College of the Bahamas back then. He was always interested in science. I mean, not everybody who is an artist is considered narrow in their thinking. You know, I mean, you have to have some brilliance to be an artist, an understanding of things, science, mathematics, and learn how to read and do research and so forth.
Yes.
But I mean, you know, Tavares, I remember just having an experience where, you know, he would be in the Rhode Island School of Design, and he was like, hey, I'm beaming the sun from the Bahamas in Rhode Island because it's winter here, right? So he figured out how to beam it from, that's art and technology, but that became an art installation. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
And so it just depends on your exposure. And I must say that a lot of the young creatives in the Bahamas, our school systems and our teachers and our institutions have done something right over the years, all right, to help to provide a lot of our creatives with the necessary foundation so that they can go into institutions beyond the Bahamas and excel.
Right.
All right, and so the reality is, yes, I can sit here and I could pick apart some stuff. Yes, we could do some things differently. Yes, some governments do this, some governments do that, but you know, we got to figure out how to have our conversations beyond that.
Transforming lives.
We have to transform lives, and
Yes.
we have to think larger. We have to think globally, and we got to figure out how we could find a way to pool our resources, to pool our knowledge, all right, and our experiences to help to not only build a better Bahamas, because the Bahamas is one of the best little places on earth. I'll never forget, and I will call his name, one of my major patrons, Mr. Michael Dingman. And I'll never forget having the opportunity to meet Michael Dingman in Life at Key. And he asked me one day, he said, Antonius, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And this was some 20 years ago, I guess. My daughter was still in high school. And I said to well, I see myself in Paris. I want to go to Paris, and I want to paint the south of France, Provence, and all of that. And he looked at me, not impressed at all. And he said, what? And leave this beautiful country, this light? He said, what is in Paris that is not in the Bahamas? That was a reality check for me. And I always reminded him when he was alive, and I remind his wife, who's a good friend, for every time I remind her of these things every now and again, my experiences with Michael. But Michael Dingman really opened my eyes to the fact that, hey, I better look at this Bahamas a little differently, all right? Because if we could attract the Michael Dingmans of the world who think that this is the greatest little place on earth, why do we as Bahamians have a problem?
Right, the same way you're talking about recognizing the value in each other, we have to recognize the value in our country, right? I always talk about we underutilize our resources, and that's really, you know, in terms of utilizing, you have to be very creative in utilizing your resources, right? And sharing them with the world and conserving them.
Yeah,
well.
but we have to begin to, and my friend, I won't call any more names, but we have to begin to look to each other and trust and believe in each other and figure out how we could collectively move forward. This kind of waiting for somebody to discover us, waiting for somebody to come and lead us, waiting for somebody to bring a huge fortune over here so that we could use their fortune to do whatever. No, 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 no.
To save us, right?
To save us. We got to figure out how we can take our little dime and tuppence, all right, and rub them together and figure out how we can begin to chart our course. Right?
Absolutely.
I celebrate a lot of our creatives and Bahamians who are doing well globally. I celebrate them. But I would like to venture and to bet and place a wager on the fact that a lot of those young professionals who are doing so well outside this country are dying for an opportunity to come back home. And to be able to make significant contribution, or just even to be able to live in this beautiful little paradise, and to continue to make their contributions globally.
Right, and
do you understand?
And to help us transform some of these spaces that you've been working on, right?
Yeah, transform spaces, transform
there's
lives.
There's a lot of space.
Right. I mean, we have all of these islands. All right, and when we talk about creativity, a lot of times we're just Nassau-centric.
Right. But most of those are blank canvases.
They're blank canvases. I'm privileged to be working on a project right now with a team of people, and I've been exposed to some folks in Eleuthera who are doing some amazing stuff with straw. They're not just doing straw hat and straw baskets and stuff. They're doing straw sculptures.
Incredible.
Do you see what I mean? Okay. And so they have been challenged to see straw differently.
Okay.
So we need to challenge and encourage our folks, the older folks in the industries. We need to expose them. We need to encourage them. We need to provide them with incentives and opportunities to push the boundaries, as it were.
Is that something that you do with your sculpting? So you try to get people to see things differently?
Well, that is something that I do with my sculpting. But I mean that is something that we as artists do. Period. Right. We just hold up a mirror. And we show people the world from our perspective.
You certainly have an affinity for sculpting, right? Why do you think you've gravitated toward sculpting, and not just small sculptures? I mean, you've done some massive installations and works of art. I mean, ranging from what you've had at Atlantis to sacred spaces. Also, I mean, bubbles, right? Bubbles in the airport is just magnificent. Like, what really inspired you to delve into that form, that medium?
What inspired me to delve into sculpting particularly was because the strong desire I had to preserve things which I found that we were losing, our natural resources, and in particular our indigenous hardwood, trees and so forth. And I was sick and tired of seeing a lot of our trees being cut down and just left to rot or taken to the dump. And so that's how I got into sculpting. And so I got into sculpting as a form of protest, as a form of say, listen, stop cutting down these trees. Look at what this tree represents. This is valuable stuff. All right, this tree is not, I mean, you can make beautiful stuff out of it because, our forefathers made great furniture out of it. They built boats out of our indigenous wood and so forth. And then the wood that some of the trees rooted on some of these properties, some of the properties were slave plantation. All right, so let's not just dismiss the fact that we have a history that is rooted not only in slavery, but there is a sense of pride and a sense of tradition that our forefathers brought to this country that we have been losing. And we have not been embracing. And so a lot of my sculptures celebrate that. And the first really large, significant sculpture that I feel that I've done was done out at Clifton.
Yes.
But that was done as part of a community because I was invited out there by New Providence Community Church to be a part of a cleanup.
I see.
Of Clifton that was slated to be a resort, a golf resort. And I will dare say that as a result of the attention that we brought to that property and carving and sculpting those trees that were rooted in the ground and having my dear friend and artist Tyrone Ferguson put some bells in the trees, like bottles in the trees, that galvanized a lot of Bahamians who rallied around it, embraced it, and that whole experience, I dare say, has forced the establishment of the Clifton Heritage Site.
Yes.
And so as a result of that protest art, because it wasn't a commission piece, it was a gift, that protest art was effective and helping us to embrace and to preserve a bit of our history.
Right.
Bubbles, as it were, for me was a way of bringing attention to our beautiful waters.
Yes.
All right, and I wanted to figure out how to sculpt with water, because when people think about the Bahamas, when folks come to the Bahamas, even when the astronauts go up in the air, they look down and say, "Oh my goodness, that place has got to be the Bahamas because they have among the most beautiful waters in the world."
Right.
And so, therefore, how do you capture that? How do you celebrate that? And so, Bubbles came about through glass blowing to figure out how to take a bit of that fun and celebration, playing and swimming in the ocean, and bringing it into a space where people can be embraced by it. And as much as I celebrate that work, and as much as that work represents the full length and gamut of collaboration, because I went to Seattle, Washington to work on that. I went to Iowa to work on that. I've worked with students from the College of the Bahamas. I mean, we had a lot of hands in that project, collaboration. I'm saddened by the fact that we in this country have yet to figure out how to sustain these magnificent work of art that some of us as Bahamians have been privileged to create. And so maintenance becomes an issue. Maintenance becomes an issue at Clifton. Maintenance is an issue at Bubbles and International Airport, because whenever I go through, I see the dust, I go crazy. I'm like, oh my goodness, oh my goodness, oh my goodness. Do they know? Do they know? Do they know? Do you understand? And so, and I'm saying that, and my point is, I'm leading to the point that when you came to me and invited me to be a part of this whole new collaboration and this whole new, what do I call?
The digital assets.
The digital world and so
right.
that I know nothing about. When you came to me, it was like, well, here is an opportunity for me to reimagine Bubbles.
Yes.
Here is an opportunity for me to take the whole concept of Bubbles and put it into this digital space where it will always remain pristine.
Yes.
So that's my
Maintenance is not an issue.
Maintenance is not an issue.
In the digital realm.
In the digital realm. And so that afforded me an opportunity to have access through you, through this technology, where my work could be reimagined.
Yes. Let's talk about that for a moment. Right? So you have the original painting, Bubbles, the artwork that you've produced. You have the glass bubbles. It's a combination of not just glass, but you have
stainless steel,
representing the waves, right? The motion and the bubbles. And all of that now has been digitalized or dematerialized in a way.
Yes.
Let's talk about that process a little bit, right?
Well, you understand that process more than I do.
Absolutely.
So,
right. Let's help the artists understand that process a little bit, right? We have the component of graphic design.
Yes.
Right, and we're combining that with the photography.
Yes.
Right, and then you have the technology that just crystallizes it into the blockchain.
Yes.
Immortalizes the artwork.
Yes.
Indefinitely.
Yes.
Right, and immutably, in a way where it literally cannot be erased, cannot be removed, and. One of the things with digital works, they can be copied quite easily, but not if they're done as NFTs, right? And so this preserves it in a way, it really gets to the essence of what you're talking about, right? The preservation, the quality of the work, right? It preserves it immutably, indefinitely, right?
But what I also like about it is that it's a collaborative process.
Yes.
All right, and the spirit of collaboration is a collaborative process. And it also affords me the opportunity, and other artists, the opportunity to be a little bit more accessible.
Yes.
Because
yes.
I do have some patrons who said, boy, I can't afford you. I want your work, but, and so in this digital realm, it's
Right.
like everyone has access to it.
Yes. Yes.
All right. It's just a matter as to when and how you want to access it.
And it's more portable,
And
right?
it's more portable. All right.
well,
And so that's
share.
one thing that I find exciting. Another thing I find exciting is that with Project ICE, as I'm developing this whole community, I'm part of the development of this community. Partnering with you and having the NFTs registered on the FTX.
That's right.
Puts me in a better position to access funding
Yes.
to help me to sustain Project ICE.
That's right.
Okay, because oftentimes it is difficult for any creative to find the necessary capital to
Right.
sustain their creative practices.
Right. Traditionally, you're looking for resources or spaces or gallery showings or outlets or even to afford an agent to place you correctly. But here you're saying you have a global open digital marketplace.
We have a global
and
open.
it's accessible to anyone who has an account for FTX, right?
Well, it is accessible to everyone. And I think, and I'm understanding that we are privileged to have, all right,
Yes.
the exchange in the Bahamas.
That's
And I, for one, have been talking to a lot of younger artists who understand this and
Right.
who themselves are creating their own NFTs and trying to figure out how to break into this market.
Right.
Which is exciting.
Right.
Because they are also understanding that you don't just do this.
Right.
This requires some discipline.
Yes.
This requires some research, some collaboration,
Yes.
and understanding of markets, and
Indeed.
understanding of technology.
That's right.
All
And
right.
so it's not a simple undertaking.
It's not simple.
But it's certainly doable when we collaborate, right?
Everything is doable when we collaborate.
Right. So I don't know if there's any final words you'd like to give to our general viewership about Project ICE, about the work you're doing, about the NFT collections that you have out right now, and maybe future collections that are coming. But I just love the fact that you're leading by example and really remaining on the cutting edge of creativity.
Well, thank you so much. I mean, I am who I am, and I'm where I am because whenever I receive a call, I answer the call, and I show up and I listen, and I'm very much interested in always learning something new, and it is important for us to be able to recognize the best in each other and to trust one another, because prior to you coming to me, I really just knew you as, but the fact that you as a young man came to me as an elder, a lot of young people say, people pass me and say, hey, senior man. So I come to me as senior man and say, hey, are you interested in this new Of course. All right. And as a result of that, I am so even more inspired to learn more and feel so much more encouraged by the future of the creative community in this country, because I truly feel in my heart of hearts that we as Bahamians are among the most creative people on earth per capita.
No question about it. Thank you so very much. And thank you for joining us this evening, Bahamas. This is Jones & Company. I'm your host, Brian Jones, and this episode was brought to you in collaboration by Project ICE and Agio Digital. Thank you, and have a good evening.